Hello and welcome to another episode of Innovate On Purpose. Today I am so excited because it's going to be a very different type of episode than what I usually do. Usually I'm interviewing guests, retail executives and CPG execs, and we have a great time together. But today I'm going to do it alone. I'm just alone here in the studio. It's just going to be you and me today. So get comfortable, relax. We're going to have a casual conversation about how to diagnose in-store problems. And really, we're going to talk about making it quick and impactful, just make it an easy approach on how you can do this without the big research studies and making it complicated. But if you were just to go in store, how do you really diagnose true problems? And I'm going to give you some real life examples of exactly how I've done this in the past. So sit back, relax, and let's get right into it.
Welcome back
to another episode of the Innovate On Purpose podcast. Hosted by Matt Mueller,
best-selling author of The Mindful Innovator and Rethink Retail's top retail expert.
We help retail leaders find clarity so they can grow their businesses purposefully.
We will uncover mindful tips, innovative solutions, and purposeful leadership advice and strategies that you can apply immediately to your retail innovation.
Are you ready to innovate on purpose?
Hey, before we jump into the episode today, I just wanted to say thank you for hitting the play button. You being here fires me up, and I cannot wait to share with you the insights that are going to make a difference in your business. Do me a favor, hit the subscribe button and leave a review so I can reach as many retail leaders as possible. They too need to hear this. Okay, let's do it. Welcome to the podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about those in-store problems that we have and how do we truly diagnose those problems. So the case study that I wanted to talk to you about today was a large grocery store that I worked with that has a bakery department. And one of the big challenges that they were faced with was figuring out why sales were slumping year over year. They were trying to really figure this one out for a while. And when I came into this picture, what we were discussing was that people are thinking about bakery different. Consumer behavior is changing. People are trying to be healthier, watching what they're eating. And what the bakery offers, of course, is not that. It's, high carb, high sugar, and unhealthy, indulgent items. And what the bakery department was thinking about doing at this point and was doing was to correct the sales trend, was to put in items that were healthier. They were looking for gluten-free options, sugar-free, light sugar, oat cookies, just thinking about all the different things that they can do that is going to help bring more health into those bakery departments. So that was like their way of fixing this problem. And after several months of doing this, finding new products, putting them into store, getting them onto the tables in that bakery department, they were still slumping in sales. No new customers were coming to the bakery department. They weren't increasing the transaction size of the current bakery shopper. And even though consumers were telling them, they were doing this research with consumers that they wanted to eat healthier, it wasn't working. So that's when we sat down and had this conversation. So, okay, well, let's really diagnose this problem. So how do we do this? Now, there's a couple different ways. And one way to do this would be to pull out a huge research project. Let's get a quantitative study. Let's survey 3,000 or so consumers of our bakery department and ask them these questions on a survey and get the results back. We can probably do this with our loyalty card data and to put this survey out and see what comes back from that piece of it. The problem is that a lot of times when you're doing these quantitative studies, well, one, they are costly because now you have to incentivize all the people that you're going to be speaking to. You have to put the time in actually building out this research project. And then you have to wait for the results to come back, which could take a lot of time as well. And on top of all of that, when you do a quantitative study and you're asking these questions, I mean, you have to think really, really long and hard about what are the questions that you're going to ask, right? When you think about this particular case, like, how do I know why people are not coming to the bakery department? I could ask in that survey, different questions like, what are you looking for in bakery departments? What are the challenges that you're facing when shopping in bakery? And then you give them multiple choice options. And a lot of times those multiple choice options and the way that you ask that question can be swayed and biased to a lot of times where the answers then come back what you're really looking to see and what you were thinking. So like to ask the question, like, do you agree with the statement of that you are looking for healthier items? That question could be very hard to get accurate results from. So, and it takes a long time and it costs a lot of money to get probably inaccurate results. It's really difficult. So when we worked together, we were thinking about how might we diagnose this problem in a cost-effective way, in a way that we can do something that was going to be more reliable and give us certainty that we were solving the right problem. So what we wound up doing was doing a qualitative research project, right? So instead of thinking of quantitative and thinking about how do we get a max amount of people into the survey and get this, statistical satisfaction of saying, okay, well, 80% of customers want healthy options in the bakery. Though that's a great statement, hard to collect and costs a lot of time and money. But what if we were to do this in a qualitative fashion? So where we're doing it with just a few consumers, not doing it with a whole bunch. But we can do this one-on-one, doing in-depth interviews and really understanding what were the challenges that they're facing and getting to a deeper level of insight with these several customers rather than a large amount of customers. And the insights that we have captured from that type of work were so insightful and so mind-blowing. We were just not expecting to get the answers that we were getting from them. And I can't wait to share what that was. So I use a 4-step process. And this 4-step process is really helpful in helping you diagnose. So if we think about this, the 4-step process that we're going to use is really thinking about that qualitative insight. So if you were to first start off by saying, okay, we have a slumping bakery sales problem that we have been facing for the last couple of years. How might we solve this? We have to hypothesize why that is a problem first, right? So doing that is going to allow us to be able to really fine tune and narrow our focus rather than blasting out, well, it could be any of these 5 different things. Let's go and find out which one it is. So quantitative data is something that is usually what leaders want to use to make decisions. They feel more comfortable with this information. And when you think about quantitative data, I'm talking about surveys with large amounts of people answering questions. That is what we as leaders feel more comfortable with. But there is a better way, because the traditional way, like I mentioned, it is costly, it is time consuming, and you don't get the deep insights. And it becomes very surface level. But that better way, you can do it quick, you can do it targeted, and you can have really deep insights that's going to allow you to make changes very quickly to your business. Small little nuanced changes and pivots that are going to allow you to reap the benefits much faster. And that is qualitative research. Qualitative research is only going to be doing a handful of consumers and speaking to them directly, one-on-one, right? In-depth interviewing. And I use a 4-step process to do this. And what's great about this is that it is super cheap, it is super fast, and the results of it are so much better than the quantitative. I love the qualitative. It really helps understand the deeper meaning of what's happening in your stores. And that 4-step process is first to hypothesize the problem, right? We have to think about what exactly is our problem that we're trying to solve for. And what was great about this bakery project that I worked on at this grocery store was that we had that identified already, right? When I walked in, the hypothesis was that we were slumping in sales because consumers wanted healthier options in the bakery. So that was our hypothesis for us to either prove or disprove. 2 is then creating a learning agenda, right? We have to develop a learning agenda that's going to allow us to prove or disprove this. We can't just go into the stores and talk to customers and saying, hey, what do you think? Do you want healthier options? Well, if we do that, we're going to get the wrong answers. It's going to be even less effective than a survey. So we have to start thinking about how are we going to collect this information? What are the questions that we're going to ask that are going to be non-biased? What are the things that we're going to do with our consumers that are going to tell us the answers? Because it's not all about just asking questions, but it's also about different exercises. What can we do to suss out this information? Well, we need them to do a store walk with us, and they need to pick up a shopping cart. And we have to set the scenario of them, hey, you're shopping for the family for the week today. All right. So we're going to shop the whole store, and you're going to tell me what's going on in your mind as we walk the store, and you're going to observe them shopping and not going to interfere with that as you are walking through the store, except for occasional probes. Right. So that's kind of like building out the learning agenda to make sure that you're proving or disproving. So when we were thinking about how do we prove out this in the bakery department, we were saying, okay, well, we can shop the store with consumers. We're going to want them to tell us what they're doing and what they're thinking in their head while they're doing it. And we'll probe that along the way. Tell me what you're thinking right now as you are walking through the bakery department. Okay, I saw that you looked at this. What was the thought there? Tell me a little bit more about why you did this. And that's kind of how we planned out our learning agenda for the bakery department. And then step 3 is engaging customers directly. So now that you have a hypothesis, now that you have your learning agenda, you're going to start to engage those customers, and you're going to find a base of small amount of customers to actually engage with, right? So finding your 5 or 10 people that you're going to walk the store that fit the demographic that you're looking to talk to, and make sure that you have those identified and then get them into the stores. And you're going to then incentivize them, right? You want to make sure that you're incentivizing them. And the key here is to do it with the right amount of incentivization, right? You don't want to do it where you're over incentivizing. You don't want to pay for their week's worth of groceries, but rather you want to maybe pay them for the 30 minutes they're spending with you or the half hour they're spending with you with a $20 gift card. And the reason why you want to do that is because if you give them too much incentivization, what's going to happen is that they are going to give you responses that are going to be so flattering for you that, oh, I love your store. It's amazing. The bakery is amazing. I just love every single thing you guys produce, because you're over incentivizing them and they want to make you happy. But if you just give them the $15-20 for the hour, what's going to happen then is they're going to tell you how it is, and they're going to give you real responses because they're not going to be biased in wanting to please you. So making sure that you find the right incentivization. That's in step 3. And then in step 4, walk the stores with customers. And remember, activate that learning agenda and really observe. No matter what the task is, whatever the learning agenda is, there should be observation involved. This is in-depth interviewing. It's ethnographic research where you're just there to follow, watch, and observe. The one thing to remember here is walking the stores with customers is that they are the expert and you are the protege. You know nothing about their life and how they pick bakery items. So you have to make sure that they are the expert in that position, and don't defend things that are happening, right? So when they walk through the bakery department and they say, oh, well, you know what? Things don't look too appealing over here. Okay, but what about this item over here? You don't think this looks appealing? You know, the cake looks moist, right? It has a nice layer of frosting on it. That's not appealing to you? You don't want to defend and say, oh, well, the reason why we did this was because. It's very easy to get defensive when consumers are telling you how they feel and what they're thinking. The key is that they know everything. So even if you know they are wrong, even if they say the cookies aren't made here, and you know we make these cookies every single day here, you don't have to say, well, we do actually make it here every day at 6 o'clock in the morning. Don't do that. Avoid doing that at all costs, and allow them to feel like they are in power the whole time. They are in power the whole time. Right? Do that and you will get more and more great insights. So those are your 4 steps, right? First step, build a hypothesis for that problem. Develop a learning agenda, step 2. Then find the consumers that you want to talk to in step 3. And 4, walk the stores with customers and allow them to lead with them being the expert. Do that and you'll be in a much better place. So now you're engaging consumers. Now you're going to walk the store with them. Observe how customers navigate the store and interact with products. Ask open-ended questions. That is key. You want to make sure that your questions are open-ended, not yes or no. Are you looking for healthy items? If you do that, that's going to fall flat on your face. But if you start to ask open-ended questions, tell me more about what you are looking for here. What are you thinking about this bakery experience? When you see this item, what are you thinking of? And when we start to ask those questions, the answers become so rich and intense that it is just absolutely amazing to see what you can get from those responses. So much deeper than a survey, so much more valuable. And then when you do a few of these, all of a sudden you could start to see some of the corresponding or the similarities between each of the interviews. So when we did this with that bakery department, with this grocery client. What we learned was that shoppers really didn't want to eat healthy. And what we were doing is we were taking these shoppers, we were going into the stores with them, walking the bakery department. They would look at the tables, take their shopping cart and tell me, okay, well, yeah, they got some bread over here. I like to feel the bread because I want to see what's crunchy, what's not. I look at the dessert options, but nothing is really too appealing. And yeah, we just kind of leave the bakery department and keep on shopping the store. Now, the key here is that we kept on shopping the store, because what I kept on noticing when we were shopping stores with them is that they kept on going down this one particular aisle. After the bakery department, they were going down the snacks and cookie aisle in the grocery stores. And lo and behold, every single time we would go down this aisle, they would be putting Oreos or Teddy Grahams or something sweet, something sugary in their cart. Now, when we're in the bakery, nothing was appetizing, was a key insight for us. We also did learn that when they told us what they were looking for in the bakery experience was that they were looking for healthier options. It wasn't really the case, because when they were going down into the bakery or into the cookie aisle, they were having no issue putting those Oreos into the carts. Hopefully they were buy one, get one free so they could put two in the cart. It was not an issue for them at all. So they definitely wanted the sweet. They wanted the indulgent. And even though they were saying that they wanted to eat healthy, when that moment when they were putting those cookies in the cart, like, okay, tell me a little bit more about this, right? You said that you wanted to eat healthy, that you were looking for healthier options for your family, but now you're putting Oreos. And like, well, yeah, of course. I mean, we do need to have something indulgent every once in a while. And you know what? The Oreos is a family favorite. And, you know, when the kids are doing well, we want to reward them with some Oreos. Or I'm having a tough day, I want to have that snack there for me so I can enjoy it. So they were still picking up these indulgent snacks. So when you put the two together, you hear, okay, I want healthier options. Not really the case, because they still were indulging. It was that they were just indulging probably a little bit less, or they were indulging in these other moments, and they were getting that fix not from the bakery department. They were getting that fix from somewhere else, right? They were getting it from the center of the store. So why are you getting it from center of store? We go back to that insight where nothing's really appealing here. That was the key for us, is like, oh my gosh, okay, so the bakery is missing on being appealing. We went back to the bakery department and started looking around, saying, why is it not appealing with these consumers? And they were saying time and time again, well, I don't think this is really even made here. These cookies are in this plastic clamshell container, but I have no evidence that this is made here. This looks like it's manufactured and brought in-house. I know a lot of grocery stores are doing that these days, that they're doing it off-site and bringing it in. Or they'll see the cakes that were sitting out on the table and notice that they were, wet from the freezer, that they were still thawing out. There were key signs that were showing them that this was not fresh. This was not something that was made here and wasn't worth the indulgence. And they were going with the tried and true. They were going with the Oreo cookies that they've known for life, that these are much better, that these are the thing that's going to pick them up when they need that pickup. So what we learned was that it wasn't about health. It was about that they still wanted indulgence, but the bakery department was almost too sanitary and too pre-made, and it wasn't appealing enough. Huge insight for us there in that bakery department. So that made us think a lot differently about the things that we were doing. So now, instead of saying, hey, bakery department, you need to think about how are you going to provide healthier options to consumers, and completely threw that hypothesis out. That was disproven. And we started thinking about, how can we make the bakery department more appealing? That was the key for us, is how do we make it more appealing and showcase that we are making things in-house? How do we do that? And what we realized was that when we looked at the operations plan of the bakery departments, that early in the morning was the time that we needed to get everything done. The bakers were going full force at 5 a.m., 4 a.m. in the morning sometimes, cooking the cookies and the bread and all that other stuff. It was all getting done in the morning, so this way it can have time to cool down and then be packaged and put on the sales floor before customers got there at around 10, 11 o'clock in the morning. So I said, okay, well, that makes sense. We need to do it that way. Otherwise, we wouldn't have product to sell, right? I mean, you need to make it before the customers are there. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for failure. But do we need to make everything there early in the morning? Or is there an opportunity to make something in the middle of the day that's going to showcase that everything in the bakery department is made there fresh? And that's when we started to think about things a little bit differently. So, okay, yes, what we're going to do is, instead of making everything early in the morning. We're going to hold back on one product, and we're going to hold back just one rack of this product, maybe 2 racks of that product, even though they made like 5 racks in most of their stores every single day. And that was the chocolate chip cookie. Why the chocolate chip cookie? Well, because the chocolate chip cookie is such a desirable smell. It showcases what bakeries are really made of, right? It is all about that sugar, that sweetness, and the chocolate chip cookie is something that highlights that smell. So if we were to make cookies at around 11 o'clock and maybe at 4 o'clock, you're hitting the lunch rush and the dinner rush of the stores when you have the most volume of customers coming into the store. And if you're cooking off those chocolate chip cookies at those times when customers are walking through the bakery department, it's going to give them a smell that's going to stop them in their tracks. And next thing you know, give them the evidence that everything in that bakery is fresh. It has that halo effect, right? So it's not just that the chocolate chip cookies are made there fresh, but everything in the bakery must be fresh, even if that's not true, even if you're still pulling cakes out of the freezer. But now this chocolate chip cookie that's being baked there, there's evidence that there's activity going on in the bakery department and that they actually do make things there. That changed the way that they were approaching the issue in the bakery department of that slumping sales, and helped correct their slumping sales. When they put in that process of making chocolate chip cookies in the middle of the day and near the dinner rush, it was allowing them to be able to have that halo effect of fresh. And customers were stopping and they were picking up things in the bakery department and putting in their cart. So we, of course, corrected those sales. And instead of having a negative sales trend in those stores, we were seeing a lift of 10% in sales year over year. So instead of seeing the slip in sales, that sales trend, we were able to create a lift in sales within those stores. So it was great to be able to see that just cooking that one item didn't add that much operational challenges, but it allowed them to actually increase their sales, their whole P&L. So it wasn't just affecting chocolate chip cookies, but it affected cakes, it affected bread, it affected everything there. And they were able to remove a lot of SKUs that they were adding into their department, which were those healthier options. And they realized that those were not moving and were not necessary in the bakery department. So we're able to help them with SKU rationalization and help them increase sales, selling fresher products in the store and keeping it more appealing. So the key was making sure that the bakery was appealing to consumers instead of healthier options. Now, this is how we diagnosed the problem here. So I had to take a look at this and say, okay, what are the key takeaways? What are the key takeaways from this for every single CPG and retail executive listening right now? It's focusing in on the root causes, not the symptoms, right? So bakery's initial diagnosis was that was only part of the story. It was that we had slumping sales, and that was because we needed healthier options. Well, we have slumping sales, but let's go improve out, right? What's the actionable research? Second takeaway. What is the actionable research? So let's talk about some key takeaways here, right? So I guess the first key takeaway is that you have to focus on root causes and not necessarily the symptoms, right? So we had a loss in sales. Well, that's great, but why do we have that loss in the sales? We have to build out something that's going to tell us why that is. And we can't just make the assumption based off of what we are thinking, right? So we have to start to really dig deep and prove or disprove the hypothesis of that root cause. Another takeaway is that actionable research doesn't have to be expensive, right? We don't have to do these large quantum studies to get data that's going to sit in our inboxes and not really be used. We can do small qualitative studies that can yield big insights, and you can do that on your own. You can actually walk these stores with consumers and get these insights. And really remember that the empathy and observation are key. So your questions, yes, they need to be well thought out. You have to ask those open-ended questions. You have to think about how you're going to ask them to make sure that you're not biasing their responses. But really, focus in on the empathy and the observations that you are making within those store walks with consumers. That is going to tell you so much more information. It's going to give you rich data for you to act on. And the last thing is that, start small and iterate. So you don't have to do this with hundreds of customers. You can do it with 5 customers. Just do it with 5 to start. Get your insights. Learn that you're wrong, and it's okay that you're wrong. It's totally, that's part of the research and innovation process, is to find out that you're wrong, find out quickly, and then iterate, and then do it again and fine tune. When we did this project with the bakery, Like we really had to think about this in a couple of different phases. And going back a second time, after we learned that consumers weren't looking for healthy because they were picking up Oreos, we went back and said, okay, well then really what is the problem? Let's take customers through again and find out what are they feeling and sensing when they're coming into the bakery department. And that's when we really learned the big insight of that. Well, the department felt like it was just not appealing. And it was that there was nothing sensory happening and it was too sterile. Like these were the things that we were hearing when we went back for the second iteration. Now that we can act on those different things. So those are some key takeaways here that you can take right now and start diagnosing in-store problems, whether you are a retailer or a CPG product that has, product on a shelf. You can go into these stores and really start to diagnose some of these big issues that you're facing there. Now, that's something you can do immediately. So those are some things that you can do immediately in your stores. So I am curious, what have you tried to diagnose problems in stores? I want to hear from you what you're doing, what you're learning, and if I can help in any way on that journey, please reach out. So those are some key takeaways to help you diagnose problems in store, whether you are a product on a shelf in the store or you run the store yourself. These are things that you can do cost effectively, quickly to solve the problems of your brand. So I advise you to go out and start doing this work. You can totally do this on your own. You can train your teams on how to do this. Remember those four steps that we have, right? So the 4 steps: hypothesize the problem, really dig into why you think this is an issue. Then go out and building a learning agenda to prove or disprove that hypothesis. Engage your customers directly with a small group of folks, right? You want a small group of customers. And 4, walk the stores with those customers and do it with open-ended questions and making big observations and not leading your witness. Don't lead the consumer, but allow them to lead you. Do that and you will be in a much better place and making sure that you are solving the right problems, saving you a ton of time and money and resources. So go out and do that. And I would love to hear from you, to hear about what problems you are solving and how you're approaching it. I would love to hear how you're diagnosing these in-store problems. But thank you so much for joining us today on another episode of Innovate on Purpose. It has been a pleasure just to have you here for myself and just us two talking. And I'd love to continue the conversation with each and every one of you. So thank you so much for tuning in today. I'll talk to you soon.
We have made it to the end of another episode. Thank you for tuning in. A couple of things before you go. If you have found value in this episode, I am sure you'll find value in what we have coming up. So please subscribe so you will have access and know when we launch the next episode. Also, leave a review. The more reviews we have, the further our reach becomes, and I truly want this to be heard by as many leaders as possible. Don't hog this all for yourself. I would love to hear your insights on this topic, so meet me on social media at Matt Mueller Innovation on LinkedIn and Instagram. And lastly, if you want to learn more about my story and what I can do for you and your company, go to themindfulinnovator.com. I would love to help you innovate on purpose. Until next time, just remember, bring a level of awareness to each conversation, each observation, each moment, and you can create great change in this world. Thank you.